Hi, I'm Jack. Welcome to the No Limits Business Lounge.
So today we're speaking to Chris, who's the owner of Director First. Listen to how he had a business that went insolvent and then he went on to build his own insolvency advisory practice. Welcome, Chris. It's lovely to meet you. Just so that we are verifying with everyone watching and listening, we met about 5 minutes ago, right?
We did.
Yeah. And I said to you a couple of minutes ago that I like to keep things quite natural and flowing, so not prepared. On this podcast, the whole point of it is that we have a discussion about your business, how you got into it, etc. But there's no limits as to what we speak about. So if there's a question that you don't like and you don't want to answer, you can veto it, but you only get one veto.
Okay.
I'm the same. So if you want to learn more about my business or what I do or what we do, ask whatever you want. I'm an open book. So I guess the first place to start is tell me about Director First.
So Director First Insolvency is a director advisory firm. So we are the number one in the UK now, and we advise directors around UK corporate insolvency. So we're pre-appointment before they appoint an insolvency practitioner, and all our advice is tailored to help educate a director. Now, the insolvencies have never been higher, but where a lot of directors in the past have made huge mistakes and it's caused them personal issues, is they weren't armed with the facts about what happens when you actually go through an insolvency process. So we've been quite disruptive in the last few years. We're starting to get noticed a lot more by the bigger firms. So it's really an education company, letting directors understand what the problems are, what options that they've got, and more importantly, what might happen to them personally as a consequence of going through an insolvency.
Okay, so do you predominantly work with small business owner directors or large scale?
It depends. So me personally, I deal with the larger, more complex cases. That might be sort of £5 to £10 million turnover. The rest of our team will deal with anything from, say, a £5,000 liquidation right the way up. What we've noticed in the last few months is larger firms are looking for advisory. It's very difficult out there if you're a business owner.
So hearing that, I mean, there's three things that I kind of want to touch on. Because this is a podcast for people looking to get into business or business owners, right? Explain to me, number one, what is insolvency?
Okay. So insolvency is a term, and there's a corporate insolvency test. There's three questions you can ask yourself as a business owner. Number one, can you pay your debts on time? If you can't, you are insolvent on a cash flow basis. Number two, are the assets of the business worth more than the liabilities? So stock, furniture, cash at the bank, money due in, etc., etc. If you totaled all that up, is that worth more than the liabilities? And if it isn't, you're also insolvent on a balance sheet basis as well. And there's a thing called the legal action test. If a company takes legal action against a company that you have, CCJ, stat demand or winding up petition, it's another sign that the business is insolvent. And if a business fails any of those three tests, it's not a sign that you must close and stop trading, but it's certainly a prompt that you need to start taking professional advice on what the options might be.
Okay, and the second thing you mentioned, you deal with larger businesses. So obviously, predominantly, we try to focus on the smaller ones because that's where we feel the most benefit is. But I'm just trying to understand this from my perspective. The larger companies who have a turnover of 5, 10 million, etc., how do they get into a position of insolvency if they're turning over that much?
Well, you'll know that turnover is vanity, isn't it?
Yeah.
Profit's sanity. So if someone's focusing on what they turn over, it's a vanity metric. And you see so many, whether they're small business owners or big business owners, I've been there before, I want to do this much, I want to do this much, I don't want to do this much. And I'm forgetting about what my net profit is, what am I actually taking home at the end of it. But But it's the same thing, whether you turn over £10 million a year or £100,000, the problems are the same, and it's generally lacks financial control. They're not forecasting, they're not managing the money efficiently. There might be a sales and marketing problem. They might have too many staff. They might be making poor decisions.
So it could be a business efficiency issue.
I think that's one of the reasons. For me, the number one reason is poor financial literacy. You know, not understanding your numbers, not having your numbers given to you on a regular basis. There are so many businesses out there that will rely on an accountant. They don't understand what a bookkeeper is. They go and see an accountant once a year, and they do a set of accounts for a snapshot of the business on that day. Well, I'm just about to sign off my accounts for the year ending December 2024. Well, we're in August 2025 now. Lots happened in those 8 months. So, and also the market's tough. You know, it's a bloodbath out there. It's really difficult. I don't want to go too much into politics, but I think the government are making it really hard for small business owners.
Yeah, and on that example, I mean, my partners in business, they've just made 600 people, well, they've offered voluntary redundancy to 600 people, and I actually agreed with it because, again, you've got to look at the bigger picture. When people mention redundancy in businesses or any change of that aspect, they just think, okay, what is this business doing? But no, it's looking at the efficiency of the business and the operational function. So the whole purpose of offering VR to all these people was, well, number one, were they needed? Number two, what are they actually achieving in terms of results in the business, and can it be done in a more efficient way? So I do understand from that perspective. But the third aspect that I wanted to actually ask you about, and you mentioned the politics of it as well. Why do you think there's been a big surge in the past few years? Because when I was looking this morning, just at a few news articles about the type of business that you do, about insolvency rates as well, it seems like the percentages are very high at the moment. Why?
So there's a number of factors. I mean, 5 years ago, there was a global pandemic, and every business out there got shut down for a period of time, and it was propped up by government fundings and subsidies. So some businesses have not recovered since COVID. And what the trap a lot of businesses fell into is after COVID, the UK boomed. Like, the economy was skyrocketing. There was a lot of cash in people's pockets. And what I've seen is a lot of businesses, to ride that wave, they needed to take on additional finance, and that could have been for stock, for spending on marketing. But this finance that they took on, it was all personally guaranteed, and it was quite high to service that debt. Now, 2020, right up to 2023, things were good. End of 23, you started to see people watch what they're spending. It was like the cost of living crisis. Mortgage increases went through the roof. Cost to heat your home went through the roof. The price of a tin of beans is, it's not what it used to be. And then, in addition to all that, we've got the government coming in now, and if you are taking on sort of minimum wage staff, the increase in NI recently, it's killing businesses. And not only that, and sometimes we feed into it, but there's a lot of bad news out there. There is a lot of bad news, and that the country's on its arse. Yeah.
Well, I think that's where I think what I do in terms of my business, it does overlap with what you've just said about the costs for people to run the business, because one of the things that I look at on a corporate level as well, the NI factor is huge, because the amount of inquiries we've had, Jack, how do we reduce our NI? Is there a way to do it? Because what people don't understand is that's gone up to 15%. But not only that, the thresholds have changed, so it's a double whammy. So a minimum wage employee is very expensive now because of these factors. Factor in pension contributions. I don't think people actually realize staffing is expensive. So when we've looked at the past few years, on a corporate level, when I've looked at businesses, one of the main changes that we've been making is actually just trying to reduce that national insurance contribution liability. For those businesses that can't even do that, that's where they're stuck. So from an insolvency point of view, is there a way to fix this before it gets to that position?
I think it's very difficult to, again, it comes back to me, you've got to understand the numbers of your business. You know, are you getting a monthly profit and loss? Are you getting a monthly balance sheet? Are you making money?
But how do you plan for, you know, things out of your control?
Well,
because cost of living.
I think to a degree you can't, but what you can have is a buffer, and this is the problem. Is you've got to have some type of reserves in your business. You've got to be making, you've got to be making your wages, but you've got to be making a profit. And obviously some of that profit needs to go back into your business, but some of it needs to be kept in your business for that rainy day. And if you've got, the term I use is a bit of wool on your back, you can sustain some issues because we don't know what's going to happen next. Like the things that are happening in the country and little things, it could be like your Google AdWords account gets turned off or your Facebook ads go down. A lot of people are reliant on these marketing channels and sometimes they can get switched off. You can get kicked off a platform. You've got to have some cash in your business that will allow you to get through. Your question is how can you plan for this? Well, you can't plan for a lot of things, but what you can be sure of is something's going to happen that you're not aware of that's going to drain your cash flow. Now, what I was saying to people at the start of this year is to plan for this increase. It's like, right, well, what are the cash flow projections?
Yeah.
What have you got? What do you think is going to happen? And not with rose-tinted glasses. Have a knock it out of the park set of numbers.
Yeah.
But what's the likely set of numbers? And what are the numbers if everything drops by 30%? So best case, worst case, likely case. And if you're doing that on at least a monthly basis, you can spot problems before they come. But the reality is, it's very hard to dodge these bullets that are being fired, particularly at small businesses.
Yeah. Well, there's a business that springs in mind. I dealt with this small business a few years ago, and the first thing I said to them when I looked at the finance, I said to them, look, you're getting a lot of funding and investment. Great. But they don't keep anything in reserves, cash. Nothing at all, because what they do is they reinvest it and they give pay rises constantly to the directors as well as the staff. And I said to them, this is what you are going to need in your emergency reserves. So it was roughly about between 3 to 6 months worth of what the business expenditure was, right? Because in my head, that's just sensible, right? Because if something gets switched off, like you said, well, you've got the reserves, you don't have to panic. They decided not to heed my advice, so they decided to continue giving the directors pay rises. The directors were taking a salary rather than dividends, right? And then on top of that, the investments that they were receiving, they continue to reinvest. That's a dangerous strategy because you said at the start, people wanting more and more, right? Fast forward 2 or 3 years, I had an email from them saying, look, the directors need to stop all of their pension contributions. And I said, why? There's no money in the bank. Funding has stopped and they can't afford to continue unless they stop the pension contributions. And I thought to myself, so you're saying that £4,000, they want to stop it for 4 months. £4,000 multiplied by 4, £12,000 is going to keep you afloat. You should have had that anyway. So that's a prime example of small businesses needing that emergency reserve. Absolutely.
I think you've touched on another thing there, though. It is directors taking too much out of the business. You've got to, when you, at the start of your financial year, you need to plan what you need to live. Now, really, you've got to try and live on 50,000 a year. And if you've got a partner, you can increase that to £100,000 a year. Now, we're quite lucky. We're in Preston. I think you can live a reasonably good life on £100,000 a year. It's different in different parts of the country. But directors who are taking too much out of this, out of the company, I mean, in that example, they were taking it through the salary scheme. It's not really the most tax efficient way to draw money.
Well, I mean, that's what I was saying. I think from memory, the directors are taking £80,000 a year salary. And I said to them, why? Take up to the 12.5, right? Show some profit, take dividends, because that way you're saving on taxation and NI, both corporate and employee. But again, I think it depends on the person, because they were so stubborn in the ways that they just wanted that salary, and their whole idea behind it was, well, what if we wanted to take out a loan? What if we wanted a mortgage? Again, I just think you need to be a lot more open-minded.
You need to be a bit more frugal as well.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, I mean, I know people who have got them big mortgages, and they are on beans and toast. You know, that they've got that big house in the country. They've got the kids at private school. They've got 2 Range Rovers. That is a real high pressure life to sustain. One of the things I say to people is like, you've got a long career. If you're healthy, and you're all right at what you do, you don't have to have everything early. It can ruin you. I don't work well under financial pressure. I used to be one of those guys saying, love pressure, mate. I don't. And financial pressure, personal financial pressure, I see this day in, day out.
What's the number one cause of mental health issues now? I
can well imagine.
Yeah, number one.
But there was another thing as well, is directors fall into the trap. And again, it goes back to they don't have financial reporting. They don't have accurate, timely financial reports to make decisions off. And because we're all told, take your salary, top it up with dividends, okay? But that's only if you're making a profit.
Yeah.
I see directors, that's what they're doing. For easy reckoning, they're taking £1,000 a month salary, they top it up £4,000 a month that they think's a dividend. Well, it's actually a drawing in anticipation of profits where you will declare the dividend. Well, they come to the end of the year and they've not made any profit. So what happens is that £4,000 a month that they've taken, 48 grand a year, actually now gets converted to an overdrawn director's loan account. You're getting smashed with additional tax in your company. And if the company goes into insolvency, you're going to be asked to pay it back. And again, it's because they're not aware. They're not aware of the risks, and I don't think they're educated. And I think this is an issue with the accounting profession.
100%.
Because they don't, like some accountants, they just want to do accounts. That's great. If you're a business owner, you need a bookkeeper as well, giving you that monthly info.
No, absolutely, Amelia. I think this is something that needs to be flagged up, this section. Financial education is so important for business owners. They think they know it all because they're a business owner. You don't. That's what I say. And I absolutely wholeheartedly agree with the accountant's side, because whenever I speak to someone, I'm a financial professional, they say to me, oh, we've got an accountant. Well, great. You might have a cat, you might have a dog. Doesn't mean that I'm not going to add value. Accountants have their job to look backwards. But the one annoying habit that they have, and I'm generalizing, so apologies.
There are some good ones.
Yeah, there are. There are
It's
some
just not many.
very good. But they don't tell people, you can do this, you should do this, you should do that. It's never that. And that, it really annoys me. I'm dealing with 4 hotel owners right now, and they've got an accountant, huge firm in the Northwest. And when I looked at the finances, I am just shocked to the core, because they're all taking £250,000 each out of the business. When I've sat down with them all, none of them need over £5,000 a month. Mm-hmm. But they're taking 250,000 out each. None of them have a pension. From an expensing point of view, they don't know what the hell they're doing. And I just think they're paying £5,000 a year for that accountant. Mm. You may as well have a bookkeeper, like you said.
I think the difference is though, some accountants don't offer advisory. No. They're probably not. I mean, I would also, do I want my financial advice from an accountant? Because
that's not their specialty.
Yeah, I want advising. It's like, do I want a personal trainer that's 20 stone? No, I want one that ripped to bits. It looks like Rambo. I want someone who's walking the walk.
Yeah. No, absolutely. So I think the main thing people need to take away from that is there's a specialty for each role. An accountant has a specialty, a financial planner, or a tax expert. They have their own specialties. Know what you need. Know what you need. Don't just assume because you have an accountant that they'll do everything. They won't. I mean, we can talk about the medical professional. You won't go to a heart surgeon if you've broke your leg, right? You just wouldn't. It's just daft. It's the same thing in finances. So going back to obviously your business, tell me how you started, the company, how many years it's been, and where you are now.
I have come into the industry in a very strange manner. I didn't go to university. I am not an accountant that took a wrong turn in and ended up in an insolvency. I had a business that went through an insolvency process probably about 10 years ago now. And at the time, just to give you a bit of context, we've been going a good few years. We weren't making millions, but we were doing decent numbers. We were making profit, paying tax, employing people. And then the government, we was involved in renewable energy, and the government just kept changing the goalposts. And overnight, there was a shock announcement that meant that we couldn't fulfill these projects. We had to go to the customers and say, listen, we can do them, but we can't give you what you think you're going to get back off this payback, because there was incentives to have these measures installed. So we lost a large amount of work like that, and we had to give back some deposits. Now, we'd have got through that. I mean, I'm smiling about it now. It wasn't funny at the time.
No, I can imagine.
My first ever introduction to liquidation was understanding that someone had gone insolvent owing us 200,000 quid. And I'm like, oh my word, like, listen, if I fall, no one catches me. I had little kids at the time, I was at home, and I'm thinking, flipping heck, I'm in trouble here. And we had a little bit of a buffer in the business. And all these big companies in our sector shut down immediately, got rid of all this stuff. And I'm one of those guys, I've read I've read that much personal development over the year. I'm dangerous, right? And I've come out of this and I've thought, well, this is an opportunity. And it wasn't. It's one of the key lessons I say to people is positive thinking has a place. I believe in it. But when your business is going to hell in a handbasket, it can be really dangerous. And what we did is we continued trying to figure it out for a few months. And the smart thing would have been lay everyone off there and then. Now, and then coming to the understanding that actually I'm going to have to go through insolvency. And I'm fairly bright. I figure things out, me. I always have done. I've got on the internet. I'm like, right, okay, I'll deal with it. And every website I saw, it gave me a bit of information, but not enough to make a decision. And certain bits of information were conflicting, so I went, right, I'm going to go out and see these people. I'm going to go and sit down with these insolvency practitioners. And I went to sit down with 3, and the experience was terrible. Like, I hadn't done anything wrong. Like, you know, one of those things that you don't see coming, right? This is a perfect example. And I got made to feel like a criminal, a naughty school. Listen, I was stressed out in my head anyway. You know, it was a really horrible time, this. And when I asked a direct question, I never got a direct answer back. And I just left there and I thought, flipping heck, I just had a really bad feeling. Like I'd leave these meetings with more questions than when I went in. And anyway, I eventually found an insolvency practitioner that was introduced to me. But even that one, right, there was things that they didn't tell me on day one that bit me on the arse down the line. That they knew that on day one, right? But off the back of this, I teamed up with a guy who, they called him a work getter. He'd go out there and get insolvency jobs. And I just said to him, I said, listen, I said, I bet we could get some work here. I says, because no one knows this stuff. I says, why don't we go out there and we tell people everything? Because it was such a closed book. And then that was it. I mean, we started messing about in 2017, 2018. And then in 2019, we got a bit more serious. And then 2020 happened. And I used to do these funny videos that everyone in the industry laughed at. Because I'm not an insolvency practitioner. I'm a lad from a council house down the road. And I started making videos about the questions that directors need to ask and what actually means, what it means insolvency. Any question someone had, I did a video on it. And then the world ended in 2020. And then these videos started to get tractions. And today, like, we will generate probably £4 million worth of fees in 12 months with a healthy profit margin. You know, we have a larger team today, and we've been that disruptive. Listen, some people in our industry don't like us. They think we're the spotty herberts. Who are these lot coming on here? They've not passed the exams.
So don't you need exams?
Well, you do if you're an insolvency practitioner.
Yeah.
But what people don't realise is...
So you're more of an advisory consultancy.
That's exactly what I am. I'm director. Right. An insolvency practitioner is an officer of the court that you absolutely need for an insolvency process. But people don't understand the dynamic. The insolvency practitioner is there to represent the creditors. Okay, you're an IFA. I want you to act on my best interests. Insolvency is such a strange dynamic. You're going out there to find an insolvency practitioner to represent the other side. Now, their duty is to represent creditors, and they have all this regulation around them that actually makes it quite difficult for them to tell you everything up front. They can give you suggestions of what goes wrong, some don't. So what we found this gap in the market where, listen, what we're going to do, we're going to tell you everything. And we're not going to charge you for this. You come to us, we're going to go, right, here are all your options, find out what the real problem is. These are the various options. And if you do any of these options, this is what's likely going to happen to you personally. And what we do is we can't hide any problems, but we prepare them on day one. And then we have 7 licensed IPs that take our appointments. So they're critical to our business. But what we do is we come in at the start and we get the strategy right. You know, like how you plan for people's futures, we help them plan the insolvency, and not in a contrite way. Insolvency is something that needs to be avoided, but if it can't be avoided, what's the outcome that they're looking for? How do we get them from A to B legally? And that's sort of, and sometimes I have to pinch myself and I think, flipping heck, how did this happen, you know? And
so if you don't charge people for educating them, how do you make money then?
it's a very sneaky business model. You know, we give a ton of advice because we know they have to use some. If you're going through insolvency, you need to work with an insolvency practitioner. Now, we'll give them that much value and do that much work for them, and then we'll go, right, what we suggest is you work with this insolvency practitioner.
And they pay you.
We will do work for them, pre-appointment, statement of affairs, and we will generate some revenue there.
Okay, so it's not the direct client that pays you, it's the...
Sometimes the client may pay an advisory, but 95% of the time they don't.
Okay, so does that mean you have to... I mean, how do you select which practitioners to work with then?
So through very, very, very thorough checking. I mean, I get a call every week. IPs either love me or hate me. We will get emails, letters every week asking, can we introduce clients? But that's our reputation on the lines. So the IPs we work with for years and years. Like, I think...
How many? You said 7?
Seven appointment takers. So, so since the sort of like 19, 20, so it's sort of 6 or 7 years we work together. And the key thing is everything we do for a director is on the basis of full disclosure. You've got to tell us everything. If you hide something from me or my team, it's going to get uncovered by the IP, and that's a different kettle of fish. So everything that we do pre-appointment is in principle, because the insolvency practitioner, they're the only ones who can make the decisions. They only have the authority once they've been appointed. So yeah, it works well.
So I'm just trying to get my head around the payment part, because let's say you've got a business, they've got no cash flow, and they come to you for advice. You give them the advice, and they need to go down the insolvency route. So they instruct the practitioner that you've recommended. How do they pay?
There'd be a number of different ways. Some people can't pay.
Right.
They
so
have no
what
money.
happens there?
Then we will just give them some free advisory, and we'll say, listen, it looks like you're going to get wound up. The official receiver is going to invite you to an interview, and we'll educate them and we'll advise them. We'll do that free. We might ask for a review. But not every business is like that. You know, there might be money in the bank. There might be some assets that need to be disposed of. So in a liquidation will cost somebody £5,000 plus VAT. That's like the bog standard liquidation. Some insolvencies, the fees generated the fees will be millions of pounds. They're a little bit large for us though. So the key thing is giving them the best advice. We give them a ton of value, and you know that person who can't pay for your services, and you give them an hour, you give them a few hours, you've left them with a really, really good impression, and they will tell somebody about it.
Yeah, and I have this discussion a lot with people in my profession, especially younger people coming through. For some reason, when they are educated or mentored by people I refer to as dinosaurs, right, they're just told, don't waste your time with X, Y, Z, just go for this person. And if you speak to someone that has nothing, 5 minutes, bin them off, go. That's what they're told. And I'm so against that. And I'm actually mentoring my own younger brother, and I've shown him examples, because he's come to meetings with me whereby I will treat everyone the same, whether they have £1 million, £10,000 or nothing, because you don't know what can come from it. So you do good by that person, like you said, they'll tell someone else. And I always tell the story, my biggest clients are because of that. My biggest clients were from a 24-year-old teacher who had nothing naturally, because they've just come out of studies, but I gave them 2 hours of my time. I helped them with a lot of things. They referred me to their parents. I did the same with the parents. They then referred me to their parents. So that's 3 generations. So the grandparents of the original person that I spoke to are my biggest clients. I would never have gotten that if I would have followed that advice from the dinosaurs and just said, no, I'm not speaking to this person.
One of the things that that's really helped us is our content that we put out there. Because we've got to a stage now where it is hard to deal with the amount of inquiries that we get. So back to that idea of if they have a question, we make content around it. People can go to our YouTube channel, and if they had the inclination, they could watch everything and they could go and walk into an insolvency firm and get a job, because it gives them that much information. And that's what we try and do. Is like some people, we can't now give...
So why is it all so secretive then, before you were doing it? Because it's the same in my industry, by the way. There's so much that is so hush-hush, and I'm like, why? What's the point?
I think... I don't want to use the word dinosaurs.
Oh, just
In fact,
use
you know
it.
what, yeah. Like insolvency, it's had a PR facelift, I think, the last few years, and I think we've actually, I think we've driven a lot of that, but a lot of insolvency people will just sit down and spout the Insolvency Act at a director, and that's not helpful.
So do you think it's a generational thing then? Because in my experience, what I noticed was in the past, like you just said, it was giving information to directors or prospects, but in such a way that they have no idea what they're saying.
Yeah.
But it's done on purpose so that, you know...
Yeah, bullshit baffles brains,
Yeah.
you know? And it's... But with it, these people are vulnerable. Like, they're mega vulnerable, and they don't really understand what's about to happen. And to quote sections of the Insolvency Act, because that happened to me, right? That wasn't helpful to me. What I want someone to say is, say, Chris, if you do that, you'll get in trouble. And you'll get in trouble because of this. Does that make sense to you? Now, if you do that, they're going to come at you for this.
About your content then, social media, is that something that you do yourself? Or?
Yeah, so I do all the video content. We had a look at one of those AI bots, and like, mate, he has a real weird Lancashire accent, so we didn't put anything out. Yeah, it's just authentic content. You know?
So you record it yourself, you upload it yourself?
So I have a team around me, so I will have, I have full camera setup, full studio setup. I do, podcasts, similar to this sort of. I will bring people on in my industry that, and it's generally finance directors, solicitors, accountants, and people who can help my audience. We've been putting out content on YouTube for probably close to 5 years now. We've got like 1 million organic views on YouTube, and people say, like, on Facebook that might not be a big thing. But you got to remember, if someone on YouTube is watching a 10-minute video on insolvency, they're interested in what we're doing, but it took that long, and that's the barrier to entry for most people. We talked about off camera, like, we did videos for 3 years and no one watched them, like, comparatively, and then all of a sudden that algorithm gets hold of what you're doing. So we'll have, I have a marketing manager as well who helps me. There's quite a lot of work that goes into the YouTube side of things, and then you've got to create all your short form content. So there's a team behind me. I couldn't do it all on my own.
So the training academy, is that open to all to apply for, or is that targeting students, for example?
That will just be people that we invite in to work for Director First. And what it will do, it will give them a base understanding of insolvency, and it will help them advise those directors who have nothing. That's actually the driver now, is how can we give more to the people that actually have nothing and get that word of mouth spreading. Our plans for the next year is we would like to continue to grow, but we don't want to sacrifice our service. I'm not a guy who wants a massive business. I don't really care for that. I want a really profitable business that does a lot of good. And at the moment, it's a lot of fun. I really enjoy what I do. But I'm not one to look too far into the future either, you know. I'll just give it my best shot today and see what happens tomorrow.
Yeah. So your academy that you spoke about, you've got a similar model to what we have. We've had an academy for the past few years where we invite young professionals. I say young, there are older, slightly older professionals as well, depending on the skill set. We invite them through the academy for 12 months and we bed them into the business. But one thing my focus has been drawn to in 2025 is university students who graduate and trying to integrate them in somehow, because the market is so bad. I've not seen it this bad for a number of years in terms of employability. Is that something that you would potentially look at?
I don't really care where someone's from. You know, I don't think university... listen, I never went to university.
I think more and more people go to university for the experience rather than the qualification.
They're on the piss for 5 years, you know, and whatever. I just, for me, it's like, what I look for in someone is, have they got a good attitude? Like, that's it. Everything else can be trained, can't it? I mean, I get it. If you're a doctor, go to university. If you're a dentist, go to university. Because I have mates that went to university and they came out of university and they're ill-equipped for life. They're ill-equipped. I think the education system is broken. You know, they're teaching people to... Who has a job for life anymore? You know, that system has never changed. So... And it's a lot of dough, isn't it? It's a lot of money to go to university.
Well, I agree the education system is broken. It's teaching people how to be followers rather than leaders.
And there's no like my little girl's dyslexic and she's super bright. Like, she's switched on. But she's not great at maths and the words jumble up. And I don't try and downplay school. Listen, you've got to do school, but it's not everything. It's not for the future. Listen, people need to learn how to think. They need to learn how to behave. If you do the right thing day in, day out, when no one's watching you, and you work hard and you learn a skill, and that could be marketing. It could, I mean, is there a more important than skilled in sales and marketing for anyone, really? You know, maybe that will be finance. This is stuff that I don't think what you do up until the age of sort of 18 is going to define who you are anymore. So I just want people who are good people, you know what I mean?
Yeah. So you've said you don't look too far in the future. You're 42 at the moment. When do you see yourself stopping? Because I'm always interested to learn from a business owner's point of view. When do they want to stop?
So I really enjoy work. Like I enjoy the cut and thrust of business, and I know people. So there's two sides to this coin. Like I know super successful people who've had sold out for multiple millions, like big numbers, and they're still working just for the sake of it, and they don't seem to be enjoying it anymore. So I think I have little kids. Like I've got a 3-year-old, a 5-year-old, a 10-year-old, and one that's going to be born in 4 weeks. So I think as they're growing up, I'm going to definitely be working like as I am. Certainly up until I'm 50. You know, I'm healthy, and I really enjoy what I do. What I don't know, though, is will I be doing this forever?
Yeah.
You know, and I just I spent years trying to plan everything. Listen, I think you should have goals, I really do, but I think you've just got to put one foot in front of the other. And what my goal is I want to be healthy, and I want to live a really long life. And I think work is important. But it's important along with everything else.
Yeah.
With my kids.
It's having the right balance.
Yeah, I've struggled.
Yeah.
I struggle with that.
See, I think I struggled with that until last year.
How old are you?
I'm 34.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm 34, but I look a lot older. The grey hairs tell you that. But I struggled with overworking and overexhaustion at one stage, and I firmly believe I found a good balance where I enjoy work, but I enjoy life more. And it just helps me reset. So I go on, holidays quite a lot. I spend time with family, whether that's, my parents or my siblings, etc. And the balance, as I'm getting older, is so important to me because it keeps me sane, and it keeps me wanting to go on. So when it comes to stopping, I've got an age in my head when I want to stop, and that's purely because I'm a planner. I like to plan things, and I've done that from a very young age. And with me, it's not a monetary goal. So I know people in my industry, they always say to me, okay, when they get to X amount, they'll sell the business. They go off. For me, it's not an amount, it's the age. When I get to a certain age, I want to make sure I achieve that.
It's interesting you say that, because somebody posed that question to me and said, would you consider selling? And I went, no, I'm 42. Like, I'm 42 and I enjoy what I do at the moment. So why would I do that? Because I would like to live a really long life. So let's say you sell out today.
How long will it last?
Exactly. You know, it's like, and I plan. I mean, I've always planned my finances. I do have a plan. But when it comes to work, I think you've got to have something to... I've got a head that doesn't shut up. I have a lot of ideas, and I've just got to keep writing them down. And some of them are good, some of them are good, because you always think, well, what would I do next? And whenever I, have too much time where I'm not doing anything, and I don't know if this is an age thing for me, I might not be at that stage you're at, but I love a holiday, and I like going back to work. I like that routine. I like taxing my brain. I don't. I could never. I don't think I'm going to be. This could change tomorrow. You know what I mean? But today, I don't believe I'm a guy who could just retire and go and live a life of I do. I really do like the cut and thrust of business.
Absolutely. So for your business then, we've spoken about a wide range of things. Now, I want to kind of throw some questions at you. They could be myths, but I'm just thinking out loud, really, because I've seen over the past few years, well, not few years, multiple years, companies that change the name or wind down or do. Do you see a lot of that, and is it a case of they're trying to hide something?
As I say, day in and day out. Yeah. You're probably referring to businesses that liquidate a business and start again, like Phoenix.
Yeah.
Phoenixism. So there is always going to be the people that game the system, but
what's the benefit though of doing that?
Well, if you was a director and you liquidate a business and start again, you may be liquidating owing HMRC, you may be liquidating suppliers, you may be, there could be a whole range of debt that you walk away from. But I think the people that do it intentionally to game the system, they are lessening because it's getting tightened up. The insolvency service are going after people that do it. The vast majority of people that I deal with, they're forced into insolvency because they have no other option. I did quite a famous, there's a lot of not a lot of press about this one at Christmas. And it was a chap who had a film studio. And the press was saying that he'd took all the money, he'd ran off with it all, and the truth of the matter is, what happened is he bought a building, a big studio, and he bought it in 2019, and then 2020 happened and he couldn't use it, and then there was the writer's strike and he couldn't use it, and then he remortgaged his own house, and he put another £500,000 into the business. And he's had to move him and his family up. They went from living in a big country pad in Kent to the spare room of relatives. And the outside world think, he's dodgy. He's not. He just, consequences, market conditions, So I don't work with directors. A big red flag for me, Jack, is if a director rings me and starts telling me what they need to do. Yeah. I'm like, why are you ringing me, mate? And they're generally the people that want to do this and do that, or they want to do something a bit shifty. The vast majority of people are just good, honest people. The business has just failed.
Now, what advice would you give to any young entrepreneur wanting to starting off on the right foot?
I would be testing if something works before you put your life on the line. And then if you run a test and it works, give it a go. My advice would be to get people comfortable in front of a camera as well. Because I think people pick up on this now. There's so many... In business, you will find a lot of people that aren't what they say they are, okay? And the more authentic you can be with people, the more they'll warm to you, or your people will warm to you. You remember, not everyone needs to love you, but you will find people out there that will spend money with you. If you do what you say you're going to do. That is like, just be where you're going to be, and do what you say you're going to do. And you'll stand out, because most people are full of shit, and they'll say one thing and they'll do another. And it's in the vast minority, and I've been in business for myself since I was 25, so nearly 20 years, of how many people have actually done what they said they're going to do, done what they said they're going to do when no one's watching, done what they said they're going to do when it was difficult to do it. And if you're young, and you can build that reputation. Like you've only got one name, so you've just got to protect it with your life.
And a final point about finances, for people to understand how much they can earn in your field, insolvency practitioners, right? What are they earning?
It would depend. It depends whether they are salaried, whether they are partners at a firm. So I think an insolvency practitioner starting would probably be commanding about £100,000 and upwards. They would, if you...
That's starting?
Yeah, a newly qualified insolvency practitioner.
Wow.
I would expect to be on £100,000 a year.
And how do they get qualified in that area?
So I've never done this route, but it's called the JIEB. It's a very, very tough exam, not a high pass rate at all.
And is that a university?
And they're calling out for insolvency practitioners. There's not a lot of them.
I'm guessing that's not a university degree. It's just a course, right?
It's a course, but I don't know the full career path on to become an IP, because it's not a route that I've gone through. But generally people go to university to accounts, finance or something, and they would start to move into the insolvency field.
And what about the advisors in your business when they're advising business owners? What are they salaried, I'm guessing?
Yes.
Okay, what are they earning?
So it would depend on their experience, like starting salary, say 25,000 a year.
Yeah, okay. So for a lot of people, when they're wanting to understand different industries, because one thing I always advocate for people to be is open-minded. Especially young professionals, don't just have a narrow mind approach of I want to be this. You can get into any area as long as you give it a go. Why should someone potentially think about the area of business that you're in as a route? What's the benefits?
I'm not sure how to answer that. I think people, it's very personable to somebody. So if someone was to go down the route of working in the insolvency profession, you can help people solve the problems. I think it would be a consistent career because there will always be businesses that need this type of advice. And more of a general rule of thumb for people, I wouldn't get too caught up on planning your life so early, you know. Go and try a few things. Go and try insolvency. You might like it, you may hate it. And if you hate it, there'll be something else.
Yeah. Great. Well,
thank you.
Appreciate the time. Lovely speaking to you.
Top man.